The market intelligence used in this webinar is drawn from the China Space Quarterly. Going beyond the panel discussion, the report offers comprehensive analysis of the events in the Chinese commercial space sector. It's based on KPIs from the satellite industry and includes technological developments as well as government policy changes. Additionally, it also comprehends funding updates, relevant M&As, and a summary of major announcements.
Thank you very much to our panelists and to all the audience members for making time today or tonight, as it were. So before getting into a couple of high-level industry facts and figures, I just wanted to bring a little bit of attention to the panelists this evening and the 5 exceptional companies that we have represented on this panel. So between the 5 of these companies, we have seen around 7 billion RMB, or about $1 billion of funds raised across more than 20 funding rounds. And as we see, there has been a significant increase with a very large peak in 2020 coming from a large funding round from CGSTL that I'm sure we will hear more about later on today. But again, just to, I guess, take a moment and appreciate our panelists. We have here a company that has its own Earth observation constellation, a company with perhaps the most advanced commercially owned satellite manufacturing facility in China, one out of only 2 Chinese commercial launch companies to have successfully reached orbit in one of their launches, a company with a global TT&C network, and also a company that has recently launched the most advanced commercial SAR satellite in China. And so again, without wanting to get ahead of ourselves, big round of applause for the panelists. We have some really excellent people and companies represented here tonight. Next slide, please. These companies have been active in what has been an extremely fast-growing and active industry. So as I mentioned a moment ago, we've seen about $1 billion of funding raised by these 5 companies. Among all Chinese commercial space companies over the last 7 years, we have seen around $4 billion. So we have about 25% market share represented tonight, which is pretty good when you consider the fact that there are more than 100 companies. So we have the cream of the crop, if you will. And one last point that I would emphasize on this slide before turning it over to our first panelist for their first introduction is that we have seen a diversification of funding sources over the last several years. And so as we see in 2020, for example, that banner year with almost 9 billion RMB, we had a lot of funding coming from private sources, almost half, and private sources being venture capital firms and other, private equity, some of which I'm sure our audience members have heard of, such as Sequoia China and Matrix Partners. So again, a lot of diversification in this very growing funding pool coming into the sector. So with that being said, I will turn it over to our first panelist, Zhong Xing from CGSTL, who will give an introduction to China's premier Earth observation, a commercial Earth observation company. So Dr. Zhong, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Glenn. Hello, everyone. I'm Zhong Xing from CGSTL. I'm very happy to join this panel. CGSTL, located in Changchun City, northeast China, was established in 2014. Its core team was from Chinese Academy of Science, started researching on optical payload-centered remote sensing satellites in 2006. Currently, CGSTL has about 500 employees with different specialties. More than 80% of the staffs have master or doctor's degree. CGSTL is an all-industry chain space company with advanced infrastructures. The company's products and services include payloads and satellites manufacturing, remote sensing image delivery, value-added information services. This is very unique in Chinese commercial space sector. In the lower right corner of this slide, it shows the R&D center of CGSTL in Changchun. It's very large. Inside of this building, there are manufacturing and test center, payload alignment and test center, environmental experiment center, and satellite AIT center, etc. Next slide, please. So CGSTL is aiming to build a constellation called Jilin-1 to generate high-resolution timely remote sensing data. The first satellite of CGSTO was launched in October 2015, and now, after 11 launches, there are 25 Jilin-1 series satellites totally in orbit. Most of them has better than 1 meter resolution, compressing the Chinese biggest high-resolution satellite constellation, and also growing very fast. There are 4 series of satellites in the constellation with different payloads, including high-resolution GF series, video SP series, wide coverage KF series, and multispectral GP series. CGSTL's construction and operation of Jilin-1 commercial constellation has been approved by China's National Development and Reform Commission and qualified as the demonstration project by China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology. For our first step, there will be 60 satellites in the constellation and at the end of this year or in the early next year. Next slide, please. CGSTO not only manufactures satellites, but also operates them by selling images and services. At present, the constellation can revisit any target on Earth 6 to 8 times per day and collect more than 2 million square kilometer cloudless images per day globally. Except for push broom images, CGSTO can also provide colorful video and nighttime images to customers. Besides the archived data, newly tasking of fresh data can be delivered within 36 hours. Data delivery mainly done via internet and local mode is also supported. The user who has its own ground station with license can directly receive the data. Now our images are widely used in urban planning, agriculture, forestry, and many other fields. That's all for my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for this first presentation for this roundtable. Maybe I will start with the first question. As Blaine mentioned, you've raised a significant amount of money already. You last year, if I'm right, you completed around $350 million fundraising, which was really significant. I think it was the largest even fundraising in the EO sector. What is the next step? Are you completed in your plans in terms of financing? Do you have further requirements to move ahead in your business plans? What's the next steps in terms of funding requirements?
Yeah, the financing accomplished last year is so-called pre-IPO. Under the financed money, it is not only for the satellite manufacturing, but also for the ground segment, and for the launch vehicle. I think these 3 parts will need a lot of money, and after our first step to operate 60 satellites into orbit, the next step we want to establish a daily coverage sub-meter class constellation, which will compressed by about 130 satellites. But this is the long-term target.
That was my next question. Where do you have a kind of time frame for the completion of your full system deployment? What is your time frame?
You mean the time frame? Okay. Currently, globally, it's only I want to say half a year maybe, and for the entire China, quarterly.
Okay, for the quarterly. But for your satellite system deployment, you said 130 satellites for having the full system deployment. What is your year target? You said it's a long-term plan.
Yes.
So around which year? I mean, from around which year you plan to have your full system deployed? What is your target?
Sorry, I didn't understand your question clearly.
Because I'm going to reformulate. You said in the long term, you had a long-term plan for further to scale up to grow your overall satellite system. I think you said 130 satellites. What is your time frame? When do you plan to achieve this full constellation?
Okay, 2030.
Okay, that's clear. That's super clear. Thank you very much. Blaine, I let you continue the round. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Zhong. Thank you, Zhongxing, and thank you, Steve, for the question. So now turning it over to our next panelist, Dong Lu, and just one short reminder to all of our panelists, and I don't want to be rude, but we have 5 companies with 5 introductions and not that much time, so we will try to keep you at 5 minutes during your presentation. And Zhongxing, thank you very much for being within the 5 minutes. That was a very that was a good start. So Dong Lu, the floor is now yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Blaine, for inviting me for this webinar. So I will quickly jump to the next slide, please. This very brief introduction to the company. The ComSat is a short form for communication satellite. So we started the business with communication satellite. The company is founded in 2015, and we are almost 6 years now. And from the map of China, we can see the location of different offices or subsidiaries of company. So the sub company has headquarters in Beijing, and near Beijing we had a manufacturer in the Hebei province called Tangshan City. And we also have a research and development center in Chengdu and Shanghai. So near Chengdu we have a manufacturer center for payload and terminals in Yibin province, in the Sichuan province. In total, we have about 200 people, and we cover quite wide spectrum of our business, including constellation design, small satellite manufacture, and satcom operation in mainly the vertical industries, and also the satellite applications. So next slide, please. A very short note for the constellation design. We think the major task for constellation design is the manufacture currently in China. So we are constructing the satellite mass construction line in Tangshan province, and this is the first one approved by NDRC in China. And we are currently now working for that, and hopefully the factory will be completed in 1 month, in 1 month's time. And we will start the testing and the manufacture from then on. And we expect to manufacture 100 small satellites for the capacity. And next slide, please. And after the manufacture of satellites, everybody will think about a market. So we have done something for pilot projects for different vertical industries. For example, oil and gas, mining, logistics, or similar industry like that. Because we think private network operation is crucial for these vertical sectors, and they value the data storage, data security, and very well. And they also value the CapEx and OpEx, and the satellite will be one of the important solution to secure that, to secure minimum CapEx and OpEx. And next slide, please. And in general, communication won't be the only solution from the space industry. So we identified 4 different areas, such as smart city, smart energy, smart transportation, smart agriculture. For different type of business, we will integrate remote sensing, communication, and other space information into the sector to create a total solution for different area. And next slide, please. So in general, for this webinar, we would like to provide some of our view in the Chinese perspective. The first thing is end-to-end satcom solution. The reason is that satcom's communication sector is more mature than the traditional satcom industry. So we could find more and more experienced talent in this area. And what they can bring is the mature market experience from the terrestrial communication sector. And the second thing is international collaboration. It's not only for market, it's also very key resources for suppliers. And we are working on that to look for better or let's say novel suppliers for the future business. And the third one is market oriented, because the space industry is generally or traditionally supported by the government. And the commercial space is probably not the same story. So we have done something around like space education, like terrestrial communication application, to create a cash flow to support company to move on. So, in the next slide, and thank you for inviting me for this webinar, and feel free to connect. And of course, we are very open to all questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Donglu. That was very much within the 5 minutes. So I just have one question, and then we will move on to galactic energy. So ComSat, as I understand, you've launched more than 10 satellites over the past, say, 6-7 years, but most of the satellites, or possibly all of them, were launched in 2018 or before. So it seems like the last few years, most of the company efforts have been being put towards building the satellite manufacturing facility and also doing applications. And so my question is, should we expect to see more satellites launched by ComSat over the next few years, or otherwise would it be almost certainly being launched for a customer and ComSat is the one that manufactures the satellites? So how do you,
I believe the first priority for the company is to manufacture better satellite and design the satellite constellation. So I would say you would expect to see more satellites launched by ComSat in the next year.
And that would be for customers or for like
for
ComSat to do some?
For customers, yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you. And Claire from Galactic Energy, we would love to hear about the launch sector in China. So take it away, please.
Thank you, Glenn. So I'm Claire. I'm Claire from Galactic Energy, and I'm gonna give a brief introduction of my company, Galactic Energy, from our enterprise and business and products. So next slide, please. And the next slide. So yes, Galactic Energy is the first private aerospace company in China and the third world capable of launching 500 kilometers SSO of commercial satellite, and which is composed of senior technical air expert of professional leadership with an average of 10 to 20 years of experience in aerospace industry. Next slide, please. And our company's main business is divided into 3 categories. Firstly, launch technology, rocket launch technology, that is satellite launch service. And secondly, power system technology. And we have full series of aerospace power system. They are solid engine and reusable liquid rocket engine and attitude orbit control engine. And we also provide technology support services. And the next slide, please. And there are 2 types of commercial launch vehicles products independently designed by Galactic Energy. The solid rocket series 1 and the liquid rocket Palace 1. And the series 1 is committed to provide high quality, cheap and fast launch services for low orbit small satellite with 700 kilometers SSO capacity, 27 kilograms. And Series 1 had its maiden flight on November 7 last year. And there are still 2 launch missions within this year, which is on September and and December. And Pallas 1 is the first stage reusable liquid carrier rocket with an aerial orbit carrying capacity 5 tons and 700 kilometers SSO orbit carrying capacity 3 tons. And the Pallas 1 will be our main rocket product on board Van International Constellation construction in the future. Okay, next slide, please. And here comes our power system. Firstly, age, series attitude orbit controls power system. And the next slide, please. And the Lightyear series of solid power system. It is the main power system of our solid rocket series 1. And the last product, next slide, please. Yes, in the last, our engine product will be the Wilking series. It is the liquid oxygen kerosene rocket engine, which is the main power system of our liquid rocket, which is Pallas 1 series rocket. So this is my brief introduction of galactic energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you very much for this interesting presentation, and as Blaine, similarly to Blaine, thank you very much for keeping yourself on the time frame. One short question: your main product today, the Cirrus launch vehicle, so is aiming at launching small satellites. It's a very competitive environment. There's a number of launch companies, lots of launch companies or startups aiming to enter this market or already operating in this market. So how do you differentiate yourself? What makes your company and your launcher more attractive to your customers? What makes you different compared to other players?
I think firstly, Galactic Energy is now the only one private commercialized rocket company up to now with 500 kilometers of capacity of orbit launch capacity in China. So secondly, I think is our technology team. Our team is composed of the frontline engineers with leadership. Our company's leadership has a strong background and deep development experiences in aerospace industry. And the last one, I think it's we have 100% ownership of our intellectual property rights of our product lineups.
And just quick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just one last question on Pallas for this heavier launcher. When do you plan to introduce the launcher? What is your time?
You mean when will we launch the Pallas 1 rocket?
Yeah.
We are gonna launch the Pallas 1, the liquid rocket, 2023.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So this is your time frame. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Blaine.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Claire. And you did it in probably 4 minutes, so I'm impressed. So maybe we can go to James's presentation.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. And okay, I do an introduction to myself. My name is James Zhang. I'm the CEO of SpaceT Luxembourg in Luxembourg. So
there we go.
Oh, good. Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about, like, say, SpaceT. SpaceT is a private commercial space company in China, and it has its headquarters in central China called Changsha, and also its international headquarters in Luxembourg. And SpaceT also has R&D facilities in Beijing and a manufacturing facility in Mianyang, Sichuan province. This picture shows you the history of the company and also the roadmap to the future. So from there, you can see the company was founded in January 2016. Within the same year, okay, in November 2016, it launched its first satellite. Only 4 months after that, it launched the second satellite using PSLV from India. So over last 5 years, it has launched 21 satellites. And the last launch was on November 22nd. So that's the time we launched our first satellite. So look to the future, you can see, and the Space T has a big plan to become not just a satellite manufacturer, and also the satellite data provider. So we have a plan to build a SAR constellation, and probably by 2025, we're going to deploy 96 satellites for that SAR constellation. And eventually, we're going to have more satellites. Depends on the market and also the funding situation. But the ultimate goal is we'll be one of the so-called world leaders in satellite data. So next, please. So this picture shows you, the three so-called satellite platforms we have now. Okay, we have 6U and 12U, and then we also have a SAR platform. So that SAR platform actually can support a satellite up to probably 300 kilos. Next. Yeah, for the past 20 satellites, except one satellite, okay, and the most of satellite we used for space science missions or technology demonstrations and say hosting services. So here shows you some examples like we have flown in the past. For example, we flew some satellite laser communication demonstration. And then I think a very good example is we did the so-called in-orbit demonstration for a French company called Thrust Me. Okay, they actually built the first iodine-based electrical propulsion system. That was a very good kind of a mission, and then got a lot of publicity. And also that mission was funded or supported by ESA and CNES. Next, please. Yeah, one of the remarkable kind of achievement we have done with the CubeSat we have is, we did so-called astronomy kind of experiment in space together with the Tsinghua University. So that mission was to detect the so-called soft X-ray polarization. And then because that research actually was stopped, probably over 40 years. And then this is the first time, and then we did that again in space using CubeSat. And then the result was excellent, and then got published on the Nature Astronomy magazine. And we are very proud of that. This is kind of proof that CubeSat can do the world-class research in space. Next. And on December 22nd last year, actually, we launched the world's first commercial C-band satellite. Okay, and the C-band SAR is not new because, in the world, in Canada, we have RadarSat 1, RadarSat 2, and also RCM. And also in ESA, they launched Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2. They are all in C-band. But however, all those satellites are government kind of funded program. So this is the world's first kind of C-band satellite. This is different from other satellite operator, for example, ISI, also Capella, because they are in X-band. And so this satellite actually was remarkable. And then we had a lot of new technologies. And then we tried to make it very small. The mass of the satellite is only 85 kilos. But we already got, very good images. Next, please. I have to say, the mission is very successful so far. Only 5 days after launch, we got first batch of images. Okay, and here shows you some images for some interesting event happened on the Earth. For example, a Suez Canal blockage. Okay, that was kind of big news in the world. And then we provided this daily monitoring. So you can see exactly 3 days, we got images for that event. And also we helped the so-called natural disaster relief activities in Indonesia. And then they had earthquake and also flooding. And through UN, we provided images, to help the government in Indonesia, to manage the consequence of the natural disasters. Next. Okay, look to the future and what we plan to do, because we already have one satellite in orbit, and then we plan to build a constellation. As I already said, okay, the plan is by 2025, we're going to have a 96 satellite in orbit to provide a very short revisit time SAR images to the whole world. Okay, that's the plan. And this year, we are building 4 SAR satellites and going to be launched probably by end of this year. Okay, next. Yeah, that concludes my kind of a short presentation. Okay, if you have more questions regarding like SpaceT or our plan, then you can send me an email.
Well,
Thanks.
well, James, we put you on the spot here with the presentation out of order, and thank you very much. That was very good. I believe that we have Dongwei from Satellite Herd back on the line, so we'll get to that in just a moment. But just one question from me. So SpaceT, I mean, it's a very interesting company in the sense that it comes from Changsha, which is not the most international city in China, let's say, but SpaceT is maybe the most international Chinese commercial space company. You have a subsidiary in Luxembourg. You have done collaboration with ThrustMe in orbit. Yeah. And so what is, how has SpaceT been the most what has been the secret there? What has allowed, and also I guess the second part of that is, how have you positioned yourself in foreign markets? How has SpaceT, compared to competitors in those markets? Because I think it's very interesting that SpaceT ended up being so international.
Yeah, exactly. I think that has something to do with the vision of our founder, the CEO, because Yang Feng, okay, he is the CEO and also the founders of SpaceT, one of the founders. And he had a vision from day one, say SpaceT should be an international company, because the space business is international business. Okay, if you only target one market for one country, it's quite limited. So that's why in the strategy of the company, and then say after 1 year after the company was founded, and then they were searching for say international kind of locations, or we call it headquarters. And then we really want to go say for global, especially for the future. If you have a SAR constellation, okay, and then your business is global. It's not just for China.
Okay, excellent. And do we want to go back to the PowerPoint and get back to the Satellite Herd slides that were just before SpaceT slides, if possible?
Okay, thank you, Blaine. I'm Dongwei from Satellite Herd, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to communicate with you here. Next slide, please. Founded in 2016, Satellite Herd is a private space company based in China. Satellite Herd mainly provides satellite TT&C data reception and calibration services for commercial satellites. Satellite Herd is dedicated to building space industry infrastructure, providing better services for commercial satellite owners by assisting them to set up more efficient and reliable connections between their satellites and ground systems. Next slide, please. These are our main business. First, Satellite Herd provides low cost and flexible ground segment services for satellite operators and enables the full exploitation of space data. Based on the proprietary network and software, we can ensure the high flexibility and reliability of satellite TT&C and data receiving services. We are operating 30 more sets of antennas at 7 sites in China. Through those ground stations, we have provided TT&C and data receiving services for 71 satellites. Second, we constructed a remote sensing satellite calibration field, which can support calibration and performance evaluation for satellites. Furthermore, we also provide satellite TT&C and data receiving hardware and software system, such as ground station, baseband, constellation management software, and the TT&C software. Next slide, please. Over the past 4 years, satellite herd, we have made outstanding achievement in China's commercial satellite TT&C field. We provided TT&C services for over 71 commercial satellites or rockets. Over 80% of commercial TT&C service market in China. We have completed 4 rounds of capital investment up to 200 million RMB. All our fund comes from private venture investment companies. In future, we hope to cooperate with more international counterparts. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dongwei, and thank you for staying inside of the 5 minutes. It's always appreciated. So one small question from my side. So I understand that Satellite Herd now has a pretty much global TT&C network of gateways around the world. And I guess for your future growth, do you see more growth in building more gateways and building out that network, or is there more emphasis on related technologies such as modems or terminals or other kind of, let's say, other technology, let's say?
Okay. In terms of overseas ground station, we have been contacting local space companies for construction and operation. But due to the COVID, our progress has been influenced. At the same time, we welcome potential partners overseas who is interested in co-investment.
Okay, excellent. Well, any overseas partners that are interested in co-investment, Satellite Herd is open. Okay, well, that concludes the panelist presentation part of our webinar. And so now we will have some open discussion. And just a reminder to the audience, we've had some really good questions coming in already, but please feel free to add some questions. I see one already that I will be coming back to in just a moment. But the first topic I'd like to discuss, and my apologies in advance to Dr. Zhang from CGSTL, because it's a little bit less relevant for Earth observation, but we've seen a lot of news recently about China's low Earth orbit constellation plans and this big broadband constellation and this new company that was founded last month, China Satnet, that seems like it's going to be operating this large constellation. And for most of the companies in the sector, whether it is a satellite manufacturing company or a launch company, I guess the largest opportunity will be serving these very big constellations, either by launching their satellites or by serving them with TT&C services, that kind of thing. So from the perspective of your company, how have you seen the constellation environment change over these past few months or year? And do you think that is the biggest opportunity for your company, these big constellations, or do you plan to address some other markets with a lot more emphasis, let's say? And so I don't know, Donglu, would you like to start? I see you're the top person on my screen, and I know that ComSat does a lot with satellite manufacturing. So do you like to?
Yeah. Yes or no? Yes, of course, the new state-owned company, State Satellite Network Corporation, will be very great role in the China space industry from this year. So many of the industry chain companies were working around this company for sure, as you said. But I'm sure, apart from the satellite network, the company, there are many other, there are many areas, such as remote sensing, navigation, or other things around space are still have some space to move on. So I don't think it's a singularity industry in China for now, and everybody will have its own, will find its own role in this big space. Yes.
Okay, understood. So would anyone else like to discuss the opportunity from constellations in general, just to be clear? It does not necessarily need to be satnet, but just the opportunity for serving these large constellations that seem to be accelerating, let's say.
Okay,
James, I see you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say a few words on that. And from like SpaceT point of view, or my personal point of view, I see the constellation has a good future in terms of market and applications. The reason for that is, especially in China, because China did not have like real so-called commercial space in the past, even like before 2035, because everything was government funded, and then it was a government program. So you, in the past, you had some like research using satellite data for remote sensing or for the other things. But however, it's only focused on government program. Because of this kind of commercial space, and then you see the needs are there. The needs must be fed, okay, met by like say services. And then we have done like a survey. Yeah, there is a lot of like needs, but however, and then there's no solutions are available. Many of the solutions requires, like say, a very short revisit time of the satellite. Okay, not like say in days, and sometimes they need like say hours. For example, like flooding. Okay, and then this kind of now it's a flooding season. If the government want to manage the natural disaster, they need the frequent kind of images of the like scenes. Then only constellations can do that. And another thing is, because of these AI technologies developed so fast, machine learning, in the past, when you do the image processing, you need a lot of like domain expertise. You need a lot of PhDs working on that. But in the future, okay, you probably just need like say software or platform that can provide you the information you need timely. And also that depends on the data source. So you need constellation. So that's why we believe, and there's a good future for constellation, especially in SAR. Why? Because the SAR has a unique capability to monitor the Earth like 24/7. It doesn't matter if it's night or it's daytime, it's storms or it's real, okay? But SAR can always get like images. Now, the challenges for SAR right now is two things, okay, in my view. First is the cost. The cost is still high because when you look at the Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, or even RadarSat, okay, we're talking about the billions of dollars. Okay, but however, for this kind of miniaturized SAR, the cost can go down significantly. So this is the cost of space asset. There's another cost, is data distribution. Okay, nowadays, you still have to use this kind of a distributor, okay, to distribute the data. Then there is a cost there. The cost could go as high as 50% of the cost of the images. Okay, if that can be, like say, revolutionized using internet, then the cost can go down significantly. Now, another aspect is this kind of so-called image interpretation. So is still difficult, but we believe with the development of AI and then machine learning, okay, and then that can be solved and a new solution will come out. So that's why we believe in the constellation has a good future, has a kind of a good market, and then we want to get into the constellation.
Okay. Steve, do you have any questions from your side?
Yeah, thanks, Blaine. Yeah, maybe I'd like to maybe move ahead regarding your international market strategy. There's been a number of questions on this on the Q&A from the questions from the audience. I'll be interested to know more about the criticality, the importance of the international market. Obviously, the Chinese market is huge. You have tremendous opportunities there, but as well, from what we've seen, from what we've heard from you as well, you are more or less all targeting as well international customers. So how much the international market is important for you, and how do you plan to address these international customers, for instance, through partnerships or other means? Maybe starting with Mr. Zhang from CSGSTL, for instance, just if you could elaborate a little bit on this, and then after, obviously, other panelists.
Yeah, for the overseas market, I think it's very important for us. But currently, I think we are focused on our service product. So all our energies are put on the domestic market. So we have some overseas agencies. A company named Head. Some audience also asked me the question. So and for the product to the overseas customers, our provide information services. And until now, we didn't have satellite manufacturers. Maybe there are some bidding opportunities, but I think the competition, there are a lot of competition, and it needs a very long term to do such kind of job. So currently, we didn't have a successful experience on satellite manufacturing. But for components, for payloads, for micro and small satellites, we have some successful cases. Most of our overseas customers just buy our imageries and information services and via our agency companies.
Okay.
I think, but the percentage is quite low currently. I think this will be the trend is very good. I think it will be enlarged in the near future.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Zhang, for these clarifications. Who else would like to talk about this? How important is the international market, and how do you plan to address these customers living in open? Otherwise, maybe Mr. Dong or Mr. Lu? Mr. Dong, yeah.
Maybe I'll give to, yes. Of course, international marketing is very important, as I mentioned in the presentation. But on the other thing, I think it's a very long way to go, because first is very costly to open new subsidiaries, new office in overseas, and also it's not easy to build the trust between, especially for companies like us. We are quite new in China in the commercial space, so it takes some time for people to understand, to get well known the company. But in the long run, I think we are currently working with several countries. They have representatives in China, or they have people in the embassy. So we are talking and try to find a way for better collaboration, not only the pure way for supply and buy, but also a different way for collaboration. So we are still on the way for that. But in general, we think international market is good to make us refresh. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe James, with your experience of dealing internationally, what are the main roadblocks, the main challenges that you've seen, that you've met in your internationalization or your commercial plan for SpaceED?
You may be on mute, James. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I think in terms of international collaboration, international partnership, okay, we are doing well. And we have formed partnerships with, like say, companies and organizations in Europe, in Asia, okay, and also in North America. Okay, and then we do value the collaborations with international partners. And that's our kind of like a philosophy. But that does not say we do not have challenges. We do. Okay, the challenge is still you are a Chinese company. And the Chinese commercial space company is still new. When I talk to people, and then the first question they ask is any kind of a government background, okay, in your company, because their understanding is Chinese space business or industry was kind of a government owned. Okay, so we have to explain to them and work with them as a team. And finally, we kind of like see win the trust from them. A very good example is like say, trust me. Okay, and now we just work like one team. And then with that, we got a lot of international publicity. Okay, because of the technology and then the so-called the relationship. But we too believe international collaboration, okay, and the international market is strategically important to Space Tea. So that's why we set up this Space Tea Luxembourg subsidiary back to 2019. And we actually work very well with a lot of like partners, okay, because we have needs, and also many partners, they also have needs to penetrate into the Chinese market. And then they can do that through us. So yeah, bottom line is it is important to us.
Possible, but challenging, but possible.
Yeah.
Thank you. Blaine, back to you, maybe if you want.
Sure. Claire or Dongwei, any thoughts on the international market for galactic energy or satellite herd?
Okay, I just okay, lady first, right?
Go ahead.
yeah. And galactic energy just in early this month we just signed a cooperate from with the China Huaten, and China Huaten is the only two enterprise authorized by Chinese government and to carry out international satellite launching service. So this is our best try, or we are trying to develop the international market. So but I think it's very hard for the rocket companies in China, because we have to work hard to compete with SpaceX, maybe. So yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. And Dongwei, you're on mute, I think. Now you're not. Excellent.
Okay. Through international collaboration, we can reduce our cost and improve efficiency of our service, which make it impossible for us to provide better service and products for our clients with competitive price. Satellite Herd thinks highly of international collaboration, and we have already been in touch with commercial space companies such as Leaf Space, Infostellar, Upsy Signals, and Cellogics. We have collaborations in terms of satellite ground station and TT&C services, and look forward to speak to more foreign space companies. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And there's one audience question that I've had my eye on here for a few minutes from Kranthi Chand, and I think it's just a fun, interesting question. How do your companies work with each other on this panel? So do you have any business relationships with any of the other companies on this panel that you'd be willing to talk about a little bit? And if so, what are those business relationships? And thank you, Kranthi. That's a cool question. Dongxing, you look like you've got something to say. Yeah, go ahead. But you're on mute, so.
Yes, of course. We have contracts with Space Heart. They provide us very good services. And I think we communication with galactic how to say energy. And yeah, because they have successful launched satellites into orbit, and we are very interested. And I think we are we are going to have some cooperation, maybe in
Thank you.
year, maybe in the next year.
Thank you.
Okay.
And also
so
we have for ComSat, we have also some technical cooperations for the payload, for the components.
Yes.
And for Space-T, I think I don't know, but we have a lot of communications, but we are working on different fields, and our satellite have some different technical ways. But I think for the mechanism or something, we have some corporations before.
Indeed, even though China is a very big country, the space industry is still very small. A lot of us still work together, as it would turn out. So anyone else would like to discuss the collab? James?
Yeah, okay, I will say a few words. I think collaboration even between companies, space companies in China is very important. Okay, and first of all, like I say, we are a satellite manufacturer. We need launch services. So that's why we work very closely with the launch service providers, okay, in China. And the second thing is, I have to say, even like with the Changguang, okay, and then I have to say we have very good future to work together. Why is that so? Because the satellite data in the future is like say fused satellite data. You need the satellite data from like say optical and also from SAR. And Changguang is very good at like optical images. And we also got many kind of international kind of like customers. They need the data for both SAR and also optical. So that's why we are in discussion with the Changguang, say, can we provide combined kind of like data services to those customers? Okay, and then also, I mean, these two Chinese companies work together is much easier. At least we do not have a language barrier. So I think, yeah, collaboration is good.
That helps. That certainly helps. Okay, Donglu or Dongwei or Claire, any additional thoughts on who you collaborate with on the panel?
Oh, outside the panel, there was as well a question about how you cooperate generally in China with other organizations, universities. There's a huge ecosystem developing. So maybe as well other partners.
Definitely, a lot of universities, a lot of research institutes, and a lot of other stakeholders. I guess one other area of discussion that I had on my list about other stakeholders. So the space business is always, it's a very hard business to make work. It's a very long-term business in terms of the investment cycle. And so a lot of the time in either the West or in China, you have commercial companies that will partner with provincial governments or national governments or other governmental entities. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how the provincial or city governments, or how the government as a partner has worked for your company. What are you doing anything in terms of partnering with provincial or city governments to develop capabilities or industrial bases or anything else like that? Donglu, you're on mute, but now you're not. Excellent.
Yes, thank you, Blaine. I know you care about this kind of question because so I put the Chinese map on my first slide. So
I always like the maps.
Yeah,
Thank
basically,
you.
I think the provincial government or local government are more like a angel investment or VC in the space industry. So in that case, different provincial government have different resources, capital or human resources or industry, or say like orders for satellites, for example. So it varies in different locations in China. Some of we have very good experience with some of the provincial governments. And I think the provincial government will be one of the major stakeholders for the space industry in China in the next 5 or 10 years.
And I guess just to dig a little bit more into, ComSat specifically, just to show, I guess, the different stakeholders here. So I believe you have the factory in Yibin and Sichuan, which is focused on more of the payload integration kind of element. And I guess in that part of China, you have a lot of excellent universities in things like electronic engineering and things that are related to payload development. And then you have the local government that is probably quite supportive of these kind of industries. And then you have, I guess, a lot of students that are coming out of the university. So basically, there's this whole ecosystem, I guess, with many different stakeholders that will play different roles. And I guess maybe the provincial government is almost acting like a platform where everyone can just do these things on the. I mean, is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, I think so, because the industry cannot grow from nothing. So everything has to be built on something, like especially the industry or human resources in this region. So, for the example of the Sichuan province, they have very good foundation for electronics, communications. There are a lot of institutions and universities and companies there. So it's good place to start from there for if you're doing something regarding communication or electronics.
Interesting. Do anyone else like to discuss these kind of local government ecosystems? Okay, James.
Yeah. Okay. I think I will talk on this problem from a different angle. Okay, from international angle first, and because we have to say space business still is kind of high risk business. Okay, and then because we still do not know that a lot about space. So like a launch failure or satellite failure still is kind of risk there. So like space business do need like support from the government. In Western countries, like in US, in Europe, even in Canada, the government has a lot of programs to support like space companies. Okay, either like R&D funding or like PPP model or all those things. China actually is doing the same thing. Okay, not just the central government and also provincial government. Okay, they have this kind of PPP program. Okay, and then you can like they can like invest. Okay, in some project. Okay, and also they give like incentive to attract companies to like a local kind of a setup. That happened to us. Probably that's the question like Blaine, you have say, okay, why you go to like central China? Okay, not in Beijing, because I think most of the companies here today, okay, they have headquarters in Beijing, but we only have R&D center there. Okay, and one of the reasons is because the local government, okay, they really want to develop space capabilities in central China. Okay, they give us some like say probably incentive, okay, to move the headquarters over there. And that happened in a lot of countries, even in Luxembourg. Okay, and then they give you incentive. They have this incubator like program, and you get like say discount on the rent. For example, now we stay in an incubator. They call Technoport. We got some discount. Okay, and then China. Okay, we're actually I mean the government are doing the same thing, and yeah, and I think that's needed. Because without that, it's very difficult to foster a kind of a commercial space industry in any country.
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, very long-term investment horizon for sure. Any other panelists would like to address this question? Otherwise, we are just about wrapping up, but happy to hear anyone else discuss this topic. And going once.
Maybe Blaine, if not Blaine, I may be asking an additional question, because there have been a number of questions from the audience on this, especially on the companies dealing with more Earth observation data or dealing on the service side. Who are you addressing? What are your main commercial customers in China? How big is the commercial sector? Where is the drivers? Where are the main drivers? And who are your main clients, basically private sector wise? I don't know, for CSGSTL, Space City, or others who would like to address these. Who are your main commercial clients today?
Yes, actually we aim to provide a public service from remote sensing data. But from we established our company I have to say the government is the most important customer. I think this is the same for all the remote sensing satellite company all over the world, because the government need informations. But for the government procurement, they also doing this via commercial ways. And now our service to private companies are increasing very quickly. It's up to more than 40% this year. And so we are focusing on building the cloud service, so everyone can access to our platform, get the images, and get the remote sensing applications very easy. So I think our goal is to enlarge this percentage of on services to the private companies to 60% in the next year.
And what are the main users sectors? The main sectors consuming data today? Where do you see the best potential?
Yeah. I think you know the housing business is the most most popular business in China. So private companies who actually they are also provide some service to the government, but they are private companies. They take part in the urban planning. They are doing constructions. So they want to have a better usage of the land, of the ecosystem, because the governments have a lot of restrictions on the and have some monitoring measurements. So our service can help these companies to avoid a lot of penalties if their construction destroys the trees, the agriculture, the forests. So something like that. I think this is a very big usage. And for the for the illegal building and the monitoring for the city monitoring, I think it's also another important branch.
Thank you. I think we are already running close to the completion of the time for this talk, but I don't know if anyone else would like to discuss very quickly commercial customers. How is this going on, and what would be your main private sector customers or drivers? Anyone else from, I don't know, Satellite Herd or Space City, ComSat?
Steve, I'm seeing some trend that the new type of customers or commercial customers are coming for satellite or for satellite data, but I cannot conclude for a certain type. But I'm seeing that trend there.
Okay.
So the space is getting awareness in many new industries in China. It's received awareness in many different.
Good, thanks.
Okay, I just want to add a few words. Yes, like government is still the biggest kind of like a user or customer of like a EO data these days, no matter it's in China or other countries as well. But however, and we also see kind of emerging kind of commercial customers, for example, in oil and gas, in agriculture. Okay, and then we got a lot of requests for like data, especially like SAR data. They need the SAR data for like the managing the infrastructure. And
specifically in China or globally?
China as well, and also insurance company and also international market as well. In China, yes. For example, insurance company, okay, they need the data to do assessment.
Okay.
Well, we are at 1 hour and 15 minutes, and we still have 62 attendees on this webinar. So that's pretty outstanding. We must be talking about some great stuff. So, shall we turn it back over to our Euroconsult hosts, who will be able to wrap up with some housekeeping?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so very much to the senior executives panel for having shared their visions on the China satellite manufacturing value chain with us today.